Cellular respiration is an incredibly interesting topic to learn about because it explains everything from why we eat to why we breathe harder when we exercise. So you'll start off with what we consume, which is glucose molecules, C6H12O6, and 6 oxygen molecules, O2. And glucose is essentially the food you eat broken down by hydrolysis and other processes. Glucose is broken down into 2 pyruvate molecules. It's oxidized and turned into acetyl-CoA. And within this process, carbon dioxide is produced and ATP is produced, and net ATP is produced. There's some ATP invested, but there's more ATP produced than invested. So, the reason why this matters is that it creates the acetyl-CoA molecules, which are used in the citric acid cycle. So the citric acid cycle uses oxaloacetate and the acetyl-CoA that the glucose just produced to create citrate, which is why it's called the citric acid cycle, with the byproducts of NADH and FADH2. Transport chain is the most important part of cellular respiration because it takes the energy-carrying molecules produced by the rest of the process, and it uses their energy to create ATP, which is the energy of the cell. So what it does is these proteins in the mitochondrial membrane take NADH and FADH2 and turn them back into NAD+ and FAD+, and it takes those hydrogens and it pumps it into the mitochondria inner membrane space. This creates a proton gradient, and so naturally the protons want to level themselves out, so they flow back through the ATP synthase. The potential energy from H+ going through the ATP synthase literally generates the energy, the kinetic and mechanical energy that is used to phosphorylate ADP into ATP, which is the energy of our cells. So at the end of this cycle is when oxygen is used. Oxygen, O2, combines with the H+ that come from here, and it creates 2 molecules of H2O. This is why you breathe harder when you exercise, because your body is creating more energy for you to exercise with, so the cycle needs to happen more rapidly, which means that you need more proton acceptors at the end of the chain. Proton acceptors being O2 molecules. And it's also why we eat, because we need the glucose molecules that provide the starting point for this cycle. In conclusion, your body uses glucose, which is the food you eat, oxygen, which is what you breathe, and it uses it to create water, H2O, ATP, the energy for your cells, and CO2, a byproduct, which is what you breathe out. Pretty exciting.